Iran-Israel News Today. Israeli troops use extreme force as mass graves inquiry grows. After an Israeli bombardment as fierce as the war's outset, Palestinian civilians in northern Gaza are fleeing. Much of the shelling has been in Beit Lahia, on Gaza's northern border, where the Israeli military ordered 4 neighborhoods to evacuate on Tuesday due to a dangerous fighting zone. Israeli Army spokesperson Avichai Adri said the military will work with extraordinary force against terrorist infrastructure and subversive elements in the region. The EU supports UN calls for a probe into mass graves found at 2 major Gaza hospitals seized by Israeli troops. UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric told reporters that credible investigators must have access to the locations after the organization reviewed accusations that more than 300 dead were found at 2 burial sites outside the Nasser and Al-Shifa hospitals. The bodies found deep in the dirt and covered with waste raised concerns about serious violations of humanitarian law. An Israeli military source called the claim baseless and unfounded. The EU and UN want an impartial probe of mass graves found at 2 Gaza hospitals destroyed by Israeli operations. This is something that forces us to call for an impartial examination of all the suspicions and all the circumstances, because clearly it creates the impression that there might have been international human rights violations, EU spokesperson Peter Stano said yesterday. 2 burial sites outside the Nasser and Al-Shifa hospitals yielded 300 dead, Palestinian authorities said. An Israeli military source called the claim baseless and unfounded. Israel's foreign ministry called Germany's decision to continue cooperation with UNRWA regrettable and disappointing because Israel had supplied comprehensive information concerning many hundreds of Hamas-affiliated UNRWA employees. Berlin said Wednesday it would continue collaboration with UNRWA after a study found Israel had failed to produce proof to substantiate charges made on a March UNRWA staff list that a significant percentage of staff were members of Gaza terrorist groups. The study found that UNRWA had a more developed approach to neutrality than other UN or humanitarian institutions, but neutrality-related difficulties persist, such workers expressing political opinions. The UN is examining the 12 employees accused of Hamas's October 7 attack. Following these charges in January, UNRWA fired 10 of the identified and declared the other 2 dead. In March, Israel accused more than 450 UNRWA staffers of fighting in Gazan terrorist groups. The U.S. campus riot police arrested several students yesterday as protests over the Israel-Hamas war intensify. The Texas Tribune reported that police on horseback apprehended at least 20 protesters at the University of Texas. Austin's Palestinian Solidarity Committee organized protest. On campuses countrywide, students have demanded that the university divest from producers of Israeli weapons used in operations against Palestine. The students plan to march and sit in at the university from a gym. Lunchtime saw 200 pupils band together. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is the most prominent Democrat to call for Benjamin Netanyahu's resignation over his terrible Gaza conduct. Israel has the right to self-defense. We condemn Netanyahu's horrible policy and conduct. What could be worse than his response? Ms. Pelosi told RTE during a Monday visit to Ireland.